Talk about the fourth episode of Ultimate Doom, Thy Flesh Consumed, and you end up with a very split discussion. Some people think it's the best thing about classic Doom. Its challenging, intense opening levels are without comparison among its peers. It's an episode that challenges like nothing else in Ultimate Doom, they'll say. For other people, Thy Flesh Consumed is a slog. It's an episode peppered with insane difficulty spikes that punish players and has a very inconsistent roster of levels. It's an acquired taste, but one which fuels endless discussion within the Doom community. So, what's the problem with Thy Flesh Consumed? Thy Flesh Consumed has an interesting spot in the Doom lore. It acts as a bridge between the original Doom game and Doom 2. It doesn't make use of weapons introduced in Doom 2, nor new enemies like the Mancubus, Pain Elemental or Archviles. On the other hand, it makes heavy use of Ultimate Doom's assets and textures, opting not to use Doom 2 textures, which gives the episode a distinct Doom 1 vibe. It's also set on Earth, where Doom 2 is set, but doesn't have any kind of city or town levels to speak of, mostly relying on bases and castles, the kind of thing you'd find in Doom 1. Already we can see that Thy Flesh Consumed is very much a hybrid of both what Doom 1 was and what Doom 2 would be. It has a bit of an identity crisis. Level to level, the theme moves between these two, and it makes certain levels feel out of place in the order of things. Ultimate Doom was particularly good at having episodes that flowed with a distinct theme. Knee Deep in the Dead is purely tech bases. Episode 2 features tech bases slowly being corrupted as you venture deeper into the episode, indicating your journey to hell. Inferno is all hell levels, cathedrals and more gothic inspired locales. Thy Flesh Consumed doesn't really know which theme it wants to run with, because it moves back and forth between bases and castle gothic settings often. I know some people don't care about this kind of thing, but when all the levels are brown and green, it makes the visual experience a bit less exciting. There was a lot they could have done with the Earth setting, and I feel that there's a missed opportunity here. And that's one of the biggest problems I have with Thy Flesh Consumed. It's very inconsistent across the board. It was released in 1995 to help bolster sales of the Ultimate Doom's big box release in retail stores. This means Thy Flesh Consumed had the benefit of learning from the feedback both the original Doom game and Doom 2 received, yet it feels like this wasn't taken into account here. Instead, it feels like some of the levels were given a lot of polish and attention, whereas others were slapped together and don't really have the same level of quality. And it has to be said that these levels don't hide that very well. This is evident when you play through the episode, as the quality spike and difficulty spikes are so inconsistent and unpredictable that it puts a fair few players off this episode. To try and illustrate this more, I'm going to go through each of the levels quickly to discuss where I feel this becomes a big problem. Maps 1 and 2 are often cited by fans of the episode as huge difficult experiences which stand out, and I agree with them, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Hell Beneath is well designed in my opinion. There's a lot of fun spaces for encounters, lots of bottlenecks for enemies to pass through, and a bunch of ways the player can help themselves when things begin to get tough. The issue for me is that the level doesn't offer enough health and ammo on ultra-violence. Watch anyone 100% this level and most players will end the level either with next to no ammo or no health. The amount of ammo on this level is carefully calibrated to match the encounters, and that in itself isn't an issue. The main problem is this level doesn't have any stim packs or med packs for the player to pick up on ultra-violence. This is a level that has 5 Baron of Hells in it, 9 Spectres, 29 Imps and 20 Shotgun Guys. That's a lot of enemies that the player has to make their way through without taking too much damage. Again though, this wouldn't be an issue, but there are 4 occasions within this level where monsters teleport in and attack the player. This means even if the player is super careful, plays defensively and doesn't mess up, they can still be caught out and punished by these traps. Without medkits or stim packs, if the player messes up just once, they'll have to start the level all over again. To me, taking out the medkits increases the difficulty, but in a very artificial way. It doesn't complement the level encounters, and it doesn't encourage players to approach the game in the way that they've been playing through the previous episodes. There are no other levels where health packs are removed in this way, and this is the first level of the episode. This is where I say the PS1 version of this level is better. It understands this issue, as it puts medkits back into the level on ultra-violence. The level retains most of its encounters, and I'd argue is even better with Barons being replaced with the Hell Knight. The player isn't being handicapped unnecessarily. They're not forced to crawl through encounters and start over because they have no way to remedy surprising situations as they arise. I can already hear people in the comments saying it's meant to be difficult, or it's for the best players of Ultimate Doom. Some players crave that difficulty, but in my eyes, difficulty doesn't always equal good automatically. The level itself is good in my opinion, but stuffing it with so many enemies who can chip away your health and only offering up 9 health bonuses is just weak in my opinion. The level's difficulty isn't a result of the encounters within, but by the artificial limitations placed on the player, and for me that just brings this level down. The second level, Perfect Hatred, is lauded by some as the best Ultimate Doom level. Romero infamously took less than a day to make this one, but I'd argue that shows. It's a level that throws so much at the player. The beginning of this level is one long Cacodemon onslaught with imps and pinkies serving as a distraction. All the while, this takes place above a large lava pain floor, which if the player falls into, they have very limited options to escape from. Considering most players will have arrived into Perfect Hatred with next to no health, putting 2 shotgunners in front of the player and between the health packs and them seems very mean in my opinion. But even outside of this, in order to escape that pain floor we talked about, is for the player to race up a staircase covered in pain floors, and at the top of those stairs is a pain floor that has imps on top of it, blocking the player from escaping to safety. And of course, because this is a Romero map, there's only a single rad suit located just under the initial platform. If the player's panicked and doesn't spot it straight away, they're going to lose what little health they have because it requires you to either fall onto it or turn around to see it. And yes, you can choose to pistol start this and give yourself maximum health, but then those shotgunners will probably turn around and take a nice chunk of your health before you successfully deal with them. If you somehow escape unscathed, there are imps and cacodemons that will stop you before you can even think about moving on. A lot of this takes place above the pain floors, which isn't awful in itself, but the second room with a pain floor appears to have an inescapable pit, but it isn't. If you fall down into this lava pool, you'll end up hitting the switch under where you came in, and this raises a platform around the edge of the room that allows you to get the yellow key. Miss that platform and the only other way out is up a hidden flight of stairs, which you won't trigger unless you walk over a very small line dev right next to the switch. Quite why this is the case is anyone's guess, it's just bad design. The other aspect of this level I don't like is the sheer number of Barons of Hell. This is the second level and there are 12 Barons of Hell on this level, usually placed in such a way that you have to deal with them. But on top of this level features 17 Cacodemons, 8 Pinkies and even a Cyber Demon at the level's end. All of this of course is on the Ultra Violence difficulty, but a lot of people will tell you that's how you're supposed to play this. Don't get me wrong, I love variety in enemies, but combining these encounters with the sheer scale of the pain floors used in this level makes things a bit tedious. And then there are some outright weak parts to the level. The white marble maze, the collection of lost souls at the top of the stairs at the end of that maze, backed by a Baron of Hell who's guarding the key. I feel like there's a great level in here somewhere, but there are so many cheap tricks and gimmicks thrown in that it takes away from the overall experience. From here, the episode experiences a wild ride in terms of quality. Sever the Wicked, in my opinion, is what the sweet spot for Thy Flesh Consumed should have been. It's fast paced, has a whole bunch of enemies, but is never too overwhelming. The level has some aspects I'm not a huge fan of, but I like that it offers multiple routes through the level, offering players the chance to modify the experience to their playstyle. That being said though, it's nowhere near as challenging as the first 2 levels and it kind of feels a tiny bit out of place if I'm being totally honest. That particular critique can easily be levelled against many of the levels that follow. Unruly Evil is easily the weakest level of the entire episode. I could make a whole video talking about why this level is so out of place, and arguably it should have been the first level of everything here, but it wasn't, and what it leads to is a level that just feels incredibly underwhelming. There's genuinely very little you can actually say about it because there isn't even that much level here. If this was never going to be the first level, then what was the point of it even being here? The 5th level, They Will Repent, is not actually a bad level. It's got a lot of things for players to find, multiple routes through it, and even has some cheeky secrets and skips for those who are paying attention. I think the biggest problem with this one is it's not really that difficult. Much like the previous levels, it struggles to offer a firm challenge. Most of this level is populated by imps, pinkies and lost souls. The only real challenge comes in the form of a single Baron of Hell, and once that's beaten, it's pretty much a straight run to the level's end. These 3 levels really do experience a come down from the first 2 outings, and it's really not their fault. They're perfectly fine levels, and if they came at the start of the episode, I think the reception to them would be a lot better, but as it is, it really just feels like you're missing out on something because the difficulties just disappeared from the episode completely. Then you arrive at the 6th level against the Wickedly, and the difficulty spikes incredibly. Now you're forced to deal with pain floors galore, enemies shooting you from across the map, and a final encounter that will challenge even the most hardened of Doom players. Against the Wickedly feels like the natural evolution from Romero's other offering in this episode, Level 2's Perfect Hatred. It feels like a level designed to catch the player out, to punish even the smallest mistake. Health is once again the centre focus as you're forced to manage your health against a number of factors that are working to constantly bring it down. This level loves its pain floors. Even once you've completed the first part of the level, beaten the Cacodemons, Shotgunners, Imps and Pinkies that wait you outside the castle, you've got to jump down into the lava moat and make your way into the main part of the level. In the lava, you'll be the target of Cacodemons, Shotgunners shooting from across the level. You'll even have some spectres running around in the lava with you. To Romero's credit, he does give you a rad suit, it just happens to be on a platform once you've entered the lava pool. I also appreciate that Romero was smart enough to put some little secrets in here for players who are more observant. A secret passage right after the previous segment allows you to move around to where the blue switch is, without having to drop into the central pool. But areas like where the yellow and red doors are located are almost impossible to navigate without taking damage. The area is filled with shotgunners and cacodemons. Even though I believe there's too many pain floors in this level, Romero didn't leave the player hanging. Instead, you're given 2 rad suits, one of which is on the far side of the pain floor, meaning you'll need to move quickly to benefit from it. I do think it's a much better level than Perfect Hatred, purely in the sense that accommodations were made and the encounters here feel a lot more interesting. Fighting a Baron in a tight corridor on the way to the Red Key can be challenging, but you can also choose to take it down from outside if you so choose. You have choices that affect how you experience this level, and it's why this is one of the better levels in Thy Flesh Consumed. Even the final encounter has an invulnerability stashed away in a far corner for the player to use if they're willing to jump through the hoops to get it. If the entire episode was of this quality and matched this tempo, perhaps Thy Flesh Consumed wouldn't be such an inconsistent mess. Nowhere is this highlighted more than in the next level, And Hell Follows, which feels like a massive step down in intensity. This level has a cyber demon, is stacked full of enemies, and has a lot of different encounters for the player, yet it's probably one of the most forgettable levels in Ultimate Doom. It's another level that exists, probably out of position. By this point the player will be more than equipped to rush through the level. Unlike other penultimate levels like Computer Station, there's no real tension or sense of dread here. There's no real build towards the end of the level. It just feels like a rush. For a level that's intended to be the penultimate experience of this episode, it doesn't really carry the momentum through from the previous level. The episode closes out with Unto the Cruel, which returns to the castle aesthetic and also has a wooden base in the mix. I appreciate that this has a full level before the final boss battle and attempts to have a build to that encounter. You have to find both the yellow and red keys, which are hidden in various locations throughout the level. You can tackle these in either way, and the challenge in getting the keys is quite fun. There's a lot of enemies to work through, and I think the level has a very good escalation towards that final boss room. But it's in this final boss room that things fall apart, as the Spider Mastermind isn't the strongest boss battle, and the room doesn't do any justice to its limitations. Being totally honest, it doesn't do much to hide the weaknesses of the Spider Mastermind, in particular when the level stocks you up with enough ammo and health to deal with it very easily. As a level I think it's great, and as a final level I think it's arguably the best boss level among all of the Ultimate Doom levels. It's just let down by that really weak final boss. When you compare it to the Cyber Demon encounter 2 levels earlier, it really feels like they could have done something a bit special with this. Then of course there's the secret level Fear, which feels like nothing else in the episode, and I mean that in a bad way. It's hugely forgettable and not even worth getting frustrated over, as it's such a waste of time. It doesn't feel like it belongs in Thy Flesh Consumed, and its inclusion is such a letdown. As I discussed, the difficulty spikes and the drops and rises in quality affect how Thy Flesh Consumed feels to the player. If the intent was to create a very difficult episode, why stop after the second level? Why not carry that level of difficulty and challenge to the end of the episode? I personally might not like how cheap some of those tricks were, but it's clear that other people love these kind of challenges. These levels have appeal and have built their own support over the years, so it's awkward that the third level, still a fun level in its own right, drops the challenge slightly, and it continues to do that for several levels after. I'd argue that the first 2 levels set a bar that isn't met by the rest of the levels that follow it, except for the sixth outing, which feels like a true successor to Perfect Hatred. The whole episode kind of gives off the vibe that it wasn't really a priority for anyone involved making it, and that's a real shame as this served as a small expansion to the original game. You can tell this wasn't a priority for anyone involved in making it, and that's a real shame as this served as a small expansion to the game that came to define first-person shooters. I have to say, from a personal point of view, I feel this episode lacks ambition. I feel this was the chance to create the, no pun intended, ultimate experience from Doom 1, drawing on the thousands of ideas thrown at the wall by fans in the past 2 years. Instead, it feels like a so-so experience that doesn't quite understand what it wants to be. I find Thy Flesh Consumed to be a huge missed opportunity, a victim of misdirection and uneven attention. Its highs can be challenging but flawed, while its lows are forgettable and bland. For me, it's not even close to being the best episode in Ultimate Doom, and I'd argue most of its levels don't stand out from the existing roster. But let me know in the comments if you disagree with me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Thy Flesh Consumed. Are you a big fan of its levels? Do you hate them? Do you think that the opening 2 levels are the best part of this? And do you think that they're flawed, or do you think that they actually deliver on the premise that they offer? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.